There has been a lot of criticism and skepticism around Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I think a lot of it is deserved on Ubisoft's end. This is a company that has ignored their classic styles of games for a long time, and even people like me who enjoy the newer styles of some of their stuff, like I like new Assassin's Creed. I do, but I also grew up with the original. So when it comes down to it, even people like me who enjoy both styles, I think even a lot of us can see, hey, you could do both of these things. You could very easily make your newer style as kind of a side series in the same continuity. Still Assassin's Creed, still canon, but if people don't want to play that, they don't connect with that, that's fine. And you can do the more classic styles. I think a lot of people, even like me, who like them have noticed that. And a lot of other people have been even more critical of it and frustrated with it who don't like the newer styles. A lot of their series have been very changed by the passage of time. Rainbow Six is nothing like it used to be. Even Siege players who love it, it's not really what it used to be. Rainbow Six used to be pretty much an entirely different series. Ghost Recon is nothing similar to what it started out as. Splinter Cell is all but dead and being revived in who knows what form, really. I mean, Ubisoft has really frustrated a lot of people who grew up playing their games. And this new criticism essentially rides on the back of that. That's why I have to establish that this company has frustrated a lot of people over the years, and then their marketing with this game is essentially that we are going back to our roots, back to the basics, back to what made Assassin's Creed Assassin's Creed. I think some people have taken that and said, well, this is going to be AC1 again, but now it's in Baghdad with Basim. Essentially, it's going to be that same gameplay. That's kind of what they built up in their head. And then we saw gameplay, and it wasn't that. And I think there was some frustration to that because of whenever you throw around back to our roots, back to basics, anything like that, what people really expect is, I want the game I grew up with, but in a new place with a new character. That's just what you are setting expectations up to be. And recently, I would say, clip of Basim teleporting has gone not viral, but it's been spread all over the place on Twitter, YouTube, and other places. This originally came from a YouTuber I don't know. I'm not insulting this YouTuber. I think it's Joe Raptor. I don't know him. I honestly don't know what his opinions normally are. I don't follow other YouTubers. This is not even a response to him. This is a response to a lot of the comments I've seen around this clip. I have very little interest in ever really responding to other YouTubers or getting in drama or beef with them. It usually ends up like two monkeys in a zoo flinging shit at each other. It's like funny and amusing for people on the outside to watch, point, and laugh, but it almost never solves anything. So unless I ever get dragged into that kind of thing for some reason, I don't want any part of it. This is a response to kind of the people around it who are talking about the series and saying, well, this clip of Basim teleporting, which apparently is an Animus glitch, worth mentioning because you are in the Animus in these games. These are recreations of historical events through technology. We've seen a ton of Animus glitches before. For some reason, everyone was okay with them then, now they're not. But this Animus glitch where you can use it to teleport up onto a rooftop is the straw that broke the camel's back on Realism, the straw that broke the camel's back on this game being bad, not at all being like its roots and being stupid. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today was I just wanted to point out a couple examples of just unrealistic insanity in this series and kind of maybe urge people to settle down a little bit, see a little bit more of the game before they make their own decisions. I personally would like to play this game, and I will tell you why. But first I wanted to take a look at some of the things in this very supposedly realistic and grounded series. Now, none of this is to insult the series, and I'm not making a top 5. This is one of my favorite video game series ever. I'm just kind of trying to prove a point. But before someone assumes that my point is only about realism, I also want to say it is also about the fact that Animus technology in this universe has never been a surefire thing. It has always been glitchy. It has always had inconsistent rules around it. They change the writing around the Animus as they redesign it throughout the series. That's something we can see in emails, even in Assassin's Creed 4, where they go back and establish some of the origins of where the Animus came from. And one of my points is, yes, this game series has never been realistic. I'm going to show you some examples of that. One of my points is, this game series, the Animus in the series has always been inconsistent technology with glitches, so this is not inconsistent with what they have established. And third, I'm sure I've criticized realism before, but I care most about if this is affecting gameplay flow, the gameplay loop, and ruining the game. I think a lot of people are focusing on other things and trying to say, well, look, this is not like the roots, but they're missing the fact that it does line up with the roots. It's just a question of, are you forced to use this mechanic? How much are you forced to use it? So far, it doesn't seem like much at all. And what is the explanation of the mechanic, which we are also going to get into. So there's a few different facets to this argument I'm making. People don't watch long enough to actually hear all of them, that's why I have to say this now. When it comes to animus glitches, it's worth mentioning that actually in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, I'm not even going to show every single thing I talk about, I'm going to show what I can and talk about the rest. There is a whole section that you are able to go to essentially through an animus glitch. Like for example, you're able to actually go to World War I with Lydia Fry, which is still a character that I would love to see a video game around, but that's neither here nor there. There are animus glitches throughout this series. People have accepted them and their lack of realism and silliness. People have accepted those things in the past. They accepted them in the canon multiplayer simulations, which were canon to the universe. They didn't mind them there. But this Bassam teleport is just terrible. So to run through a couple of games that are not realistic at all, but I still love, Assassin's Creed 1, no matter what the height of the climb you make is, you can jump off of that height and dive into a bale of hay and leave unscathed, undamaged, you're not hurt. That pretty much goes for the entire series, but it's introduced in the very first game. If we want to look at the roots, the very first game has unrealistic things like that. The whole item that acts as a driving force of that game is an Apple of Eden. The final enemy encounter of this game involves a villain using this apple, which is a secret piece of technology hidden by a conspiracy from an ancient race of beings to summon illusions and freeze the body of the main character in place. That's how it's used. The apple later displays a full hologram-like map of the world, and your character has a sixth sense, which is eagle vision, which allows them to discern friend from foe and track their targets. It's explained away in later games by coming from the Isu, which is basically, honestly, if we're really looking at the writing of this series, the Isu is used to hand wave away pretty much any explanation of anything that should be unexplainable because it's a video game. So I don't understand why the animus glitch being that same thing is somehow a huge problem. It's also worth mentioning there's near infinite stamina when it comes to this game. You can be knocked off of surfaces, knocked off of walls, tripped, etc., but you could pretty much hang on a building forever. You just kind of set your controller down, have Altair hanging on the side of a building, come back, pick up your controller at any time, and you're fine unless a guard knocks you off that building. You're not running out of stamina. Those are not realistic things. I'm going to breeze through the rest of them, but AC2 gets more into the existence of Isu. They talk about how they were a race that existed before humanity and created them as a workforce. I suppose that's not entirely implausible, but it becomes implausible and ridiculous later on because the lore keeps being expanded on over the years, and it actually just starts to lead to unrealistic levels of association where, like I said, almost any mystical event, you can point to Jesus Christ, you can point to, I believe, Gandhi, you can point to the assassination of Hitler. All of these things, they almost all tie back in some way to Isu or to Isu descendants with Isu blood in them, or to Isu artifacts. It's used as a hand wave to explain away anything that really shouldn't be very explainable because it's a game, like I said, and you pretty much have to accept a lot of bullshit. You have to accept that pretty much every god that ever existed was just someone's interpretation of an Isu. For example, AC Brotherhood. Ezio is able to summon down, his brotherhood at any time. He's able to just kind of raise his hand and whistle, and everybody just shows up on horsebacks as if they've been stalking you at all moments just around the corner. Then we get into the fact that there's instant takedowns with raining down arrows onto enemies to instantly kill them. It starts to get ridiculous, right? But we accept it because it's a game and we enjoy the characters. You're also able to use an Apple of Eden, like we talked about earlier in previous games, near the end of this story to control the minds of guards who attack you, and those pieces of Eden will keep coming back throughout the series. You're also after another science fiction item, the Sword of Eden, which you are then able to equip and use, and it's overpowered at the end of the game. And the RPG era games, the reason I didn't focus on these is because everybody already criticizes and insults them. I did just want to point out, you do have a bird in these games that can pretty much psychically be controlled by the player, and then you are able to use the bird to mark targets, and somehow the assassin, or maybe I should say, assassin affiliate in some of these games that you're playing as, is able to just instantly know where those enemies are. Okay, so I'm not trying to run through like the longest list in the world here. I had a bunch more. I think it's irrelevant at a certain point because I'd just be talking to talk. But these games have never been realistic. Basim teleporting up a building one time in a random clip where someone decided to use the feature and was, as far as I'm aware of, not at all forced to, is not the end of the world on this game. The reason to me that this game seems to be trying to combine better aspects of modern Assassin's Creed with the better aspects of the past is because it did actually try and make the climbing a little bit more like it used to be. Now, is it entirely? No. I mean, it's pretty obvious that this is a modified version of the climbing in Valhalla. They're trying to give it that classic feel, but it's still not the classic system. If that's your criticism and you want that back, I fully, honestly, mostly agree with you. I mean, I'm fine with games having the newer system, but I was really hoping there would be things in this game like manual ejects and the ability to actually climb like you used to be able to climb. Or even when there was kind of being, I guess I would say, touted a little bit as Unity-like in a lot of the leaks and stuff. That it doesn't really look that Unity-like to me. I mean, in some shots it does. It's very clear they tried to make some animations look Unity-like and look fluid like that. But it's almost a combination of that Unity-type animations with the animations from Valhalla. So it's a weird mix and match. I don't know. There are things to criticize here, absolutely, that I think if you're saying, hey, look, you said this would be like the classic games. Why is it not this classic climbing? Or why is the combat not quite like this? I think those things are realistic and fair criticisms of the game. I'm not trying to sit here and be the company man and say, you leave Brittany alone. I don't know if people remember that meme, but leave Assassin's Creed Mirage alone. That's not really what I'm doing. I am sure there's going to be things in this game that are pretty ridiculous or silly. But when people are basing their criticism on realism, which is what I've seen a lot of these games used to be realistic. Did they? When were they realistic? I don't remember this. I don't think I've ever played a realistic Assassin's Creed game. What Assassin's Creed does is it does a good job of establishing its own world and rules so that when it's not realistic, it feels like it's realistic. Does that make sense? They are tricking you into believing their world. That's called suspending disbelief. Good writers, good storylines, good worlds, a lot of them are able to do that. They're able to get you to suspend your disbelief and accept the story for what it is. When people look at Star Wars, they don't look at how ridiculous it is. They accept it for the universe that it's in. So I'm just kind of wondering why all of these other things are acceptable for the universe that it's in, but this one is the problem, especially when a lot of those other things seem to be a crux of what the game is. You know, you can't opt out of the magical artifact storyline that ends up being science fiction, proto-human pieces of technology that can control human minds. You can't opt out of that. You can't opt out of a lot of these things. But you can opt out of using the teleport. As far as I'm aware, if this is ever required, it's extremely rare. This is pretty much a, hey, if you want to use this, it's fun. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Kind of like how a lot of classic video game compilations now will have a rewind feature or save states. If you don't want to do save states or you don't want to rewind the game, don't do it. You don't have to. I mean, there's plenty of games where I think people are honestly shortchanging themselves a little bit by playing them on very easy. Do you know what I don't do? I don't sit and turn on Halo 2 and seethe when I see the easy mode. You know what I do? I click down to heroic. I don't click legendary because I'm not psycho. I click down to heroic and I move on with my day. Now, at the end of the day, if somebody's going to brag to me they beat the game on easy, yeah, maybe we'll have a conversation about that. But I'm not really going to go out of my way to just bully them or hate on them or say the game's shit because it has the ability to tone it down, right? This glitch is supposedly that Basim is so quick because of his affiliation with a certain character that I purposely do not want to ruin for people who did not play Valhalla, because I think it is a cool twist, that the Animus can't always keep up with him. I think that's kind of a neat thing. But as far as I'm aware from all of the gameplay impressions I've seen, the people I've watched play the game and talk about it, you do not actually have to use that feature. But I just wanted to talk about this for a few minutes because I feel like there are a lot of fair criticisms about things that are being ignored when it comes to Assassin's Creed, especially Mirage. There are fair criticisms here to hit Mirage with. I don't understand why we have to reach and go over here to this random thing that doesn't really matter. That's what's kind of bothering me about this, is because it also detracts from actual conversation that's deep about the game that it, could be used to prove some points about things Ubisoft is missing. I think Ubisoft is missing out by just not doing any of their classic climbing styles. I think Ubisoft is missing out by not trying to capitalize on both styles of game, and instead it seems a little bit like they're trying to mix them together into a mashed potatoes type thing here. Now, most of the criticisms I've seen have been from random people who haven't played the game. A lot of people who played it and had hands-on seem to have positive impressions of it, and it does seem to me like what it's trying to do is bring back the soul of what made the original slew of games what they were. A focus on stealth, a focus on kind of social stealth, a focus on combat, but not combat in the sense of the RPGs, combat in the sense of almost a more classic style. Those are things that I like. I like that this game appears to be shaping up as a celebration of Assassin's Creed in a lot of ways. It seems to be bringing back that sandbox, classic, single city style, and I really enjoy that. And there's a focus on those things that I already said that made Assassin's Creed what it was. To me, that's the part of back to its roots. I think if we really want to criticize the Animus glitch, we could dig through every Assassin's Creed game, starting at 1 and 2, some of the most applauded games ever, or even Brotherhood, most people's favorite, and we could tear them apart. We could point out all the unrealistic, ridiculous things. But at the end of the day, it's a video game. It's meant to be fun. And this, to me, seems like a mechanic that's very easily opted out of or avoided if you're not interested in it, and that's fine. You don't have to be interested in it. I played through Elden Ring recently, and I played through it as a sorcerer. I've heard a lot of people tell me that the game is a lot harder if you are a knight or a swordsman of any kind. I didn't do that, because I was already pulling my hair out playing as a sorcerer, and that, a lot of people say, is an easier way to play the game. That's fine. That's how I wanted to play the game. That's cool. It's whatever. I don't really think that anybody should be forced to play as a swordsman or forced to play as a sorcerer or anything like that, right? That's one of the options in the game. So if it is an option to avoid this mechanic that you don't like, do so. I don't really see the big problem here. Again, Marvel's Spider-Man, one of the most beloved, probably PlayStation exclusive games ever. There's criticisms to be had, and there are overpowered abilities that honestly trivialize some of the game's combat. And I pointed those things out too. I pointed those out in a video where I talked about, hey look, I just don't think these need to be here. And I will concede that on the Assassin's Creed thing too. The teleport, it does not need to be here. I agree with you. But at the end of the day, people did make a good point that I do agree with. I can still have the opinion on Spider-Man that some of those abilities are overpowered and don't need to be there. But I don't really think they ruin the game, because I can also just opt to not use them if they trivialize combat for me and make it too easy. I can just say, I don't want to use Web Blossom. I'm not gonna. Some of these things throughout the entire history of the franchise have not needed to be there. But do they really ruin the games? I don't really think they do. And if they don't, I guess I don't understand the argument of why this does. It just seems to me a little disingenuous if you played the previous games and were a fan of them. If this is your first Assassin's Creed and you don't know the history of the rodeo show here, fair. Maybe this series isn't for you, and that's fair, because it is not realistic at all. I understand if people don't connect with that. But I do think that for people who have played the games and are really taking shots at this one aspect, it just seems to me a little bit like maybe they forgot some of the honestly ridiculous things throughout the franchise's history. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. I also did do a video yesterday, a top 5 on Assassin's Creed I'm very proud of. YouTube did not send out notifications for it because they show me that for some reason. I don't know if it's just to make me feel bad, but they really didn't show anybody that video existed. So I'm going to include this here in the end screen, and if you want to check it out, I do appreciate it a lot. I love this series. I don't really try and shill for it. There's plenty of things I don't like, but I don't really like when the criticisms are not at least somewhat consistent. I'm sure I've had inconsistent criticisms. That's going to happen when you are on the internet and do what I do. I'm sure I've been a hypocrite before. I'm sure I will be again. I just try not to be, and I do feel like shitting on this game that's not even out yet for this one unrealistic thing and giving a pass to all the others, it just It rubs me the wrong way. So please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content if you enjoyed today's video. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. And as always, everyone, stay shui.